first time. Glad I gave you something to look forward to. Was beginning to believe I knew who you were behind that mask.
Anakin Skywalker was weak. I destroyed him.
Then I will avenge.
Revenge is not the Jedi way.
I am no Jedi.
Ahsoka.
Anakin, I won't leave you. Not this time.
Then you will die.
Then came Mortis, a planet that was not a planet, a dream, a vision, a test of the Force itself. There, they saw things they shouldn't have seen. Ahsoka, twisted by darkness, dying in Anakin's arms. Anakin faced with the truth of who he was and what he might become. It was more than a mission. It was a prophecy made real, and it terrified them both. But even in that nightmare, one thing was constant. They chose each other. The moment their shuttle was pulled into that strange rift in space, everything changed. The stars vanished, replaced by a white void that stretched into infinity. And then there was land, a jagged mountainous realm where the air shimmered like heat over desert sands, yet it was cool to the touch. Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, and Obi-Wan Kenobi stepped into this place with the war still on their minds, but the Force here was overwhelming. It whispered and roared all at once. The ground pulsed faintly under their boots, as if alive. They met the ones, the daughter, radiant and calm, eyes like starlight, the son, a shadow-given form, words sharp as blades, and the father, a presence so ancient it felt older than the galaxy itself. He told them this world was the heart of the Force, a place where light and dark lived as beings, where balance was a fragile thing. The test began quickly. They were separated, drawn into illusions tailored to break them. Ahsoka found herself wandering through a forest where the colors bled into shadow. A voice called her name, soft at first, then sharper, twisting her doubts into weapons. The sun appeared, offering power, the ability to fight beside Anakin as an equal, to never be the Padawan left behind. His words slid into her heart, planting a seed of mistrust. When Anakin found her again, she was different. Her eyes were colder, her stance defensive. There was a darkness coiled inside her like a serpent, and before he could reach her, she attacked. The clash of blue lightsabers cracked the air, each strike heavier than the last. Anakin's voice broke as he called her name, but she did not answer. The son had her now. It was Obi-Wan and the daughter who brought her back. The daughter gave her life to heal Ahsoka, her light pouring into the young Togruta until her breath returned. When she awoke, she saw Anakin kneeling beside her, hands still trembling. His relief was quiet but fierce. He didn't speak of the tears she thought she glimpsed in his eyes, but Mortis was not finished with them. The father warned Anakin of a darkness within him, a destiny that could shatter the galaxy. The son sought to make that future real, showing Anakin visions of what he might become. Darth Vader. The images burned into his mind, cities burning, Jedi falling, Padme dying. His voice shook as he denied it. But somewhere deep inside, he feared it might be true. Ahsoka saw the weight of it pressing on him. She wanted to reach for his hand, to tell him he was better than whatever the Force showed him. But she also remembered the darkness she had felt. The moment she turned against him on that field, she had seen how quickly the light could falter. The days, or what passed for days, in Mortis bled together. Time did not move normally here. They fought together against the sun, his power bending the world to his will. Storms tore mountains apart, rivers turned to molten fire, and still they stood side by side. Ahsoka moving with him as if they had fought together for a lifetime, Anakin protecting her with a ferocity that left no doubt She was more than just a Padawan to him. And yet, the prophecy lingered. The Father's voice echoed in Anakin's mind. Balance must be preserved. The Chosen One must decide. The end came in a rush. The Son sought to destroy the Father, to plunge the galaxy into shadow. In the final battle, the daughter's sacrifice and the Father's choice ended it. The sun fell. The world began to collapse, and the light of Mortis faded. When they awoke, they were back in their shuttle, drifting in normal space. No time had passed. The war was still waiting, but something inside them had changed. Ahsoka could not forget the feeling of darkness in her veins, the way it had almost felt like home. She told herself it was just Mortis, just the sun's manipulation. Yet part of her wondered if the galaxy outside might hold shadows just as deep. Anakin did not speak of the visions, but they haunted him. In the quiet moments between battles, he would glance at her, as if making sure she was still here, still herself. He had chosen her over prophecy in that place, and though he would never admit it, he knew he would make the same choice again. Mortis became a secret between them, a dream that had felt more real than war, a vision they could never fully explain. But it bound them tighter than any victory in the field. For in that strange, impossible world, they had seen the worst of each other and still chosen to fight together. And perhaps that was the truest test of all. And then it broke. One moment she was a Jedi, a commander, a hero. The next, a suspect, a traitor, a fugitive. Someone set her up. An act of sabotage, not just against the Jedi Order, but against her heart, her purpose, her very name. She ran. Not because she was guilty, but because no one, except Anakin, believed she wasn't. Anakin, I understand more than you know. Ahsoka, I know. In that moment, he lost more than a Padawan. He lost the only person who truly saw the man beneath the mask. They came for her at dawn, not the enemy, not separatists, clones, her own men, the soldiers she had led into battle, the ones who had laughed with her, bled with her. Their faces were the same. Their eyes were not. They found the bombs in the hangar. They found the keycard in her quarters. They found her standing in the wreckage of a crime she didn't commit. She didn't fight back. She could have. The Force whispered 100 ways out, but she stood still because she thought, foolishly, that the truth would protect her. The temple cells were cold. The council's chamber was colder. Jedi masters, her own mentors, sat high above her like judges in some ancient trial. Plo Koon's gaze was heavy with sorrow. Mace Windu's words were sharp as glass. And Anakin was on his feet, pacing, defending, demanding. They looked deeper, but the Order was already leaning away from her. War had made them paranoid. Fear had made them blind. And the council was all too ready to sacrifice one of their own to keep the Republic's trust. She was stripped of her rank. Her lightsabers were taken. And the word Padawan was no longer hers. The military court was worse. The Republic's senators and soldiers watched her like she was already condemned. The accusations were loud. The evidence, pointed but precise, was louder still. Every breath she took felt like it was on borrowed time. Anakin didn't stop. He tore through the lower levels of Coruscant, chasing rumors, fighting thugs, breaking rules. Every step he thought of her. Every lead he saw her face in the cell. Until he found the truth. Not in some grand revelation from the Force, but in the shadow of someone he once called a friend, Barriss Offee, a Jedi, her peer, her betrayer. When Anakin confronted her, Barriss didn't deny it. She confessed to the sabotage, to the bombing, to turning against the war. Not because she hated Ahsoka, but because she believed the Jedi had already lost their way. Anakin dragged her to the court in the final moments of the trial. The truth came out. The charges against Ahsoka were dropped. Freedom was hers again. But trust was gone. The council summoned her. Words of apology fell from their lips, too formal to mean much. They offered her the rank of Jedi Knight, skipping the final trials as a gesture of atonement. She looked at them, at the faces that had turned from her when she needed them most. And she thought of the cold cell, the silence from the people she had once called family. Her answer was simple. She refused. Outside the temple steps, the city hummed with life, as if the galaxy hadn't just shifted beneath her feet. Anakin followed her. He wasn't in armor. He wasn't her master. Just a man standing beside her, not ready to let go. I understand more than you know, he said quietly. She turned to him, eyes soft but steady. I know. And in that moment, he realized what he had lost. Not just a Padawan, not just a friend, but the one person who had seen through all the walls he built, who had cared for the boy beneath the soldier, the man behind the Jedi mask. She walked away into the crowded streets of Coruscant, her montrals vanishing in the blur of speeders and neon light. He stayed there, watching until she was gone. The temple felt emptier when he returned. His quarters, quieter. Even the war room seemed colder. Something had shifted in him too, a crack in his faith. A carry in his faith, a fracture in his loyalty. If the Jedi could cast out Ahsoka, what would they do to him when the time came? Neither of them knew it then, but this was the first true break, the moment their paths began to diverge. And though war would bring them together again, it would never be the same. For the first time, they walked separate paths. But the bond remained, invisible, unspoken, unbreakable. Anakin kept fighting. Ahsoka kept searching. Neither of them was ever the same. The war would soon end, but peace? That was already lost. When Ahsoka walked away from the Jedi Temple, the galaxy felt bigger and colder than ever. She had no rank, no title, and no home. The streets of Coruscant were not kind to those without protection, and though she had her skills, every step reminded her she was now on her own. While she drifted through the shadows of the underworld, chasing whispers of work and justice in equal measure, Anakin returned to the front lines. To his fellow Jedi, he was still the heroic general, still the chosen one. But inside, there was an emptiness he couldn't shake. The Council had doubted her, failed her, and in doing so, they had chipped away at his already fragile trust. That fracture would never fully heal. In the weeks that followed, Ahsoka found herself pulled into unexpected conflicts. She allied with old acquaintances like Trace and Rafa Martez, running missions that didn't wear the Jedi crest but still carried the same spirit of helping those who had no one else. Her fights were smaller in scale but sharper in consequence. Smugglers, crime syndicates, and corruption that didn't make it into the HoloNet headlines. Each battle taught her something new about herself, that she could protect without being a Jedi, that she could be a light even in the dark corners of the galaxy. Yet every time she ignited her sabers, she felt the phantom weight of what she'd lost. Meanwhile, Anakin pushed harder at the war. Without Ahsoka's grounding presence, he was more reckless, more aggressive. His victories came faster, but so did his frustration with the Jedi Council. They kept him on a leash, denying him the trust he felt he'd earned, and now they had taken from him the one person who had always believed in him without question. Still, he told himself he was fighting for peace, for the Republic, for her, even if they never spoke again. The galaxy was changing quickly. The war with the Separatists escalated, and whispers of the endgame reached both of them from different directions. For Ahsoka, the turning point came when Bo-Katan Kryze sought her help to liberate Mandalore from Maul. It was a cause too important to ignore, and one that pulled her, reluctantly, back toward the Jedi and the Grand Army of the Republic. That mission brought her face to face with Anakin again. Their reunion was brief, but it carried all the weight of the months apart. He gave her back her lightsabers, polished and ready, and for a moment it felt like old times. Though neither of them said the words they really wanted to, duty called him elsewhere, and they parted once more, unaware that the galaxy was about to fall apart. The siege of Mandalore was fierce. Ahsoka and her clone troops fought their way through the city's narrow streets, ultimately capturing Maul. Victory seemed within reach, but as the battle ended, the real war began. Across the galaxy, Order 66 was issued. In an instant, the men she had fought beside, laughed with, and trusted with her life turned their weapons on her. Ahsoka's instincts saved her, but the betrayal cut deep. She discovered the truth about the inhibitor chips buried in the minds of the clones, a truth that explained their sudden, merciless obedience. In a desperate gambit, she freed Captain Rex from the chip's control, and together they fought their way off a doomed Star Destroyer, crashing into anonymity. Anakin's path, during those same hours, was far darker. Summoned to the Chancellor's office, he found not a leader, but a Sith Lord. The promises of power, of control, of saving those he loved proved too tempting. When Order 66 began, he was no longer Anakin Skywalker. He was Darth Vader, leading the assault on the Jedi Temple, cutting down the very brothers and sisters he'd sworn to protect. For him, Ahsoka's absence was both a wound and a shield. She wasn't there to stop him, but she also wasn't there to die by his blade. Neither of them knew the other's fate. Ahsoka, burying her sabers in the snow as a memorial to the clones she couldn't save, disappeared into the galaxy's undercurrents. Anakin, consumed by his new identity, helped Palpatine forge the Empire from the ashes of the Republic. The war was over, but it wasn't peace. It was the end of everything they had once believed in. From that point on, their paths diverged completely. Ahsoka became a shadow, a survivor who would quietly aid resistance movements without revealing her name. Anakin became an enforcer of tyranny, hunting the Jedi remnants with ruthless efficiency. And yet, across the vastness of space, the bond between them, invisible, unspoken, unbreakable, endured. Somewhere in the Force, it still hummed, a faint echo of what once was. Neither of them would ever truly be the same, and the galaxy would never again know the light they had once brought together. The war ended not with peace, but with fire. With a purge. Order 66 shattered the Jedi. And in the ashes rose Darth Vader. Ahsoka survived. She felt it through the Force. The moment Anakin fell, years passed. She searched for survivors. She fought for those who still believed. But somewhere, deep in the galaxy's shadow, he waited. She didn't want to believe it, that her master, her friend, had become this dark creature. But when she stood face to face with him, in the ruins of the Sith temple, "I won't leave you. Not this time. Then you will die." That was Anakin's voice no more. Yet even then, beneath the mask, behind the rage, she felt it. A flicker, a whisper of the man he used to be. Anakin Skywalker. She couldn't save him, but she never stopped believing. And maybe, just maybe, he never fully let her go either.